They aren't conspiracy theorists. They are soldiers, pilots, and high-ranking intelligence officers. And they all swear the government is hiding proof of non-human technology. Welcome to the Purple Files. If you enjoy our videos, please consider subscribing to the channel. Let's get right into it. Our countdown begins with the man who, in the summer of 2023, transformed the landscape of this entire subject. His name is David Grusch, and his credentials are what make his testimony impossible to ignore. He is not a civilian researcher. He is a 14-year veteran of the intelligence community and a decorated former combat officer who served in Afghanistan. His career placed him at the heart of America's most sensitive organizations. He worked for both the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency and the National Reconnaissance Office for 2 years. From 2019 to 2021, he served as the National Reconnaissance Office's representative to the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force. Then, from late 2021 until 2023, he became the co-lead for the analysis of unidentified aerial phenomena within the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency itself. His job was, quite literally, to investigate this mystery for the United States government. It was during this official duty that he says he was informed of a deeply covert, multi-decade program, a program that was being illegally hidden from proper congressional oversight. According to Grusch, this secret program has been successful in locating and retrieving craft of what he calls non-human origin. In his own words, this includes both intact and partially intact vehicles. His central claim is staggering, that elements within the government are in possession of alien spacecraft and have been actively trying to reverse engineer their technology for decades. Now, it is crucial to note that Grusch does not claim to have seen these craft with his own eyes. Instead, he is acting as a formal whistleblower on behalf of others. He told both the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community and the United States Congress that he has interviewed over 40 high-ranking officials who have direct, first-hand knowledge of and involvement in these secret retrieval and reverse engineering programs. He has provided the specific names of these individuals, the locations of the craft, and details of the programs to investigators in classified briefings. His allegations became public after he filed a formal whistleblower complaint claiming he had faced illegal and severe retaliation for his confidential disclosures. This culminated in his historic public testimony under oath before the House Oversight Committee in July of 2023. When asked directly if the United States government had possession of these craft, he was unequivocal. And when asked if biologics had been recovered alongside the craft, his answer sent shockwaves around the world. He stated that recoveries of non-human biologics had been made, based on the information given to him by direct knowledge witnesses. What makes David Grusch arguably the most significant whistleblower in history is that he followed the rules. He is a contemporary intelligence insider who used the official, legal channels to bring his information forward. The Inspector General of the intelligence community reviewed his claims and deemed them both credible and urgent. David Grusch did more than just tell a story. He filed a formal report that forced the highest levels of government to stop denying and start investigating. Before David Grusch took his story to Congress, there was Lou Elizondo. If Grusch opened the floodgates, it was Elizondo who built the dam of credibility and then broke it. A former career intelligence officer specializing in counter-terrorism and espionage, Elizondo's last job at the Pentagon was one of the most sensitive imaginable. He ran the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or AATP for short. This was a secret $22 million program initiated by former Senator Harry Reid, tasked with investigating military encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena. For years, the Pentagon denied this program even existed. Elizondo and his team collected the data, interviewed the pilots, and analyzed the startling evidence coming in from Navy carrier strike groups and other military assets. What they found, according to Elizondo, was a consistent pattern of objects displaying what he calls the 5 observables. 5 characteristics of flight that are beyond any known technology. These are anti-gravity lift with no visible means of propulsion, sudden and instantaneous acceleration, pulling G-forces that would crush a human pilot, hypersonic velocities without signatures like sonic booms, low observability meaning they are difficult to detect with radar and often invisible to the naked eye. And finally, transmedium travel, the ability to move seamlessly from the air into the water and even into space. Frustrated by what he saw as excessive secrecy and a refusal by senior Pentagon leadership to take the security threat seriously, Elizondo resigned in October of 2017. But he didn't just walk away. He was a central figure in the bombshell New York Times article published just 2 months later, an article that exposed the existence of his secret program to the world, and most critically, he helped facilitate the official declassification and release of 3 stunning pieces of military footage, the now famous Tic Tac, Gimbal, and Go Fast videos. For the first time, the public could see what United States Navy pilots were encountering. Lou Elizondo's actions single-handedly dragged the UFO topic out of the shadows and forced it into the mainstream. He proved that the Pentagon did have a secret UFO program, and his calm, persistent, and methodical advocacy has been a driving force in compelling the government to finally admit that these phenomena are real, tracked, and, as of yet, unexplained. Lou Elizondo provided the official framework, but Commander David Fravor provided the unshakable human testimony at its core. If you were to build the perfect eyewitness for an unbelievable event, you would build Commander Fravor. He is a graduate of the prestigious Top Gun Naval Flight School with over 17 years of experience as a Navy pilot, and the former commanding officer of the Strike Fighter Squadron 41. His job was to know, with absolute certainty, what friendly and enemy aircraft looked like and how they performed. On November 14, 2004, off the coast of San Diego, that expertise was put to the ultimate test. The USS Princeton, a Ticonderoga-class cruiser, had been tracking a series of strange objects on its advanced Spy-1 radar for 2 weeks. The objects would appear suddenly at 80,000 feet, plummet to 20,000 feet, hover, and then shoot straight back up. On that day, Fravor and his wingman were diverted from a training exercise to intercept one of these mystery targets. When they arrived at the location, they looked down at the ocean and saw a disturbance on the otherwise calm sea. A large, churning patch of white water, as if something big was just below the surface. Hovering erratically about 50 feet above this disturbance was something Fravor had never seen before. It was a smooth, white, oblong object with no wings, no rotors, no visible engines, and no exhaust plumes. It was about 40 feet long and looked, in his words, like a giant tic-tac. As Fravor began a slow circular descent to get a closer look, the object began to mirror him, rising to meet him. Fravor then decided to cut across the circle to head it off, a committed, aggressive maneuver. The instant he did this, the tic-tac accelerated at a speed he describes as like nothing I've ever seen. It shot away with no sonic boom and vanished in less than 2 seconds. Moments later, the USA Princeton reacquired the object on radar. It had reappeared at the pilot's original rendezvous point, some 60 miles away almost instantly. Later that day, another flight crew managed to capture the object on an infrared camera, resulting in the famous video that Elizondo would later help release. David Fravor's calm, credible, and expert account of this encounter is the bedrock of modern UFO disclosure. He is an unimpeachable witness, describing a vehicle that demonstrated all of the 5 observables long before the public knew what they were. His testimony proves that the Tic Tac video is not just a blurry shape on a screen, it is a record of a real event, witnessed by one of the best pilots the United States Navy has ever produced. We now turn to the man who is arguably the most famous, and certainly the most controversial, UFO whistleblower of all time. His name is Bob Lazar, and before he came forward in 1989, the world had never heard of Area 51. He is the person who single-handedly burned that name and the secrets he claimed it held into the global consciousness. In a series of interviews with Las Vegas journalist George Knapp, Lazar made a set of claims that seemed to come straight from science fiction. He stated that he was a physicist who had been hired to work at a top-secret facility built into a mountainside south of Groom Lake, a base known as S4. His job, he claimed, was to reverse engineer the propulsion systems of captured extraterrestrial vehicles. Lazar described seeing 9 different types of alien craft stored in hangars at the facility. He said he worked specifically on one called the Sport model, a classic-looking flying saucer. According to Lazar, the craft was powered by a small reactor that used a stable isotope of an undiscovered super-heavy element, element 115, as its fuel. This reactor would generate an antimatter reaction, which in turn produced intense energy and gravity waves. The craft would then amplify and direct these gravity waves to literally bend space and time, allowing it to cross vast distances almost instantly with no sensation of movement for the occupants inside. The controversy surrounding Bob Lazar is immense. Investigations into his background could find no records of his claimed degrees from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology or the California Institute of Technology. However, the story is not so simple. Supporters point to several pieces of corroborating evidence. A 1982 phone directory from the Los Alamos National Laboratory does list Lazar as an employee, exactly where he said he worked before going to Area 51. His W-2 tax form from that period shows he was paid by the Department of Naval Intelligence, which he claimed was the agency overseeing the project. And, perhaps most compellingly, years after he first spoke of it, element 115 was officially synthesized by scientists and added to the periodic table. While the debate over his credentials continues, his cultural impact is undeniable. Bob Lazar's story defined the entire Area 51 legend. He provided the public with a detailed, technical, and mesmerizing narrative that went far beyond simple lights in the sky. His claims have inspired countless books, shows, and documentaries, and a new wave of viral fame from appearances on modern podcasts has introduced his incredible story to a whole new generation. Our next whistleblower is a man whose military credentials are beyond dispute. Colonel Philip J. Corso was a highly decorated Army officer with a career spanning from World War II to Vietnam. He served on General Douglas MacArthur's intelligence staff during the Korean War, was a member of President Eisenhower's National Security Council, and eventually became the head of the Foreign Technology Desk in the Army's Research and Development Department at the Pentagon. His job was to assess technology captured from America's adversaries. In 1997, late in his life, Corso published a book titled The Day After Roswell, which contained an explosive claim. He alleged that in 1961, while working at the Pentagon, his superior, General Arthur Trudeau, handed him a file cabinet. Inside this cabinet, Corso said, were artifacts recovered from the famous 1947 crash of an extraterrestrial vehicle outside of Roswell, New Mexico. His mission, he claimed, was not to analyze the technology himself, but to do something far more clever. He was to seed this alien technology into the research and development programs of major American corporations and defense contractors. He would carefully pass along pieces of the recovered debris and technological concepts, allowing these companies to study them and claim the resulting innovations as their own. It was a way to jumpstart American technology without ever revealing the otherworldly source. According to Corso, this secret program led to some of the most profound technological leaps of the 20th century. He claimed the integrated circuit, which is the basis of all modern computers, was reverse engineered from the ship's navigation system. He said fiber optics came from studying the strange light-conducting filaments found in the debris. He alleged that night vision technology, super tenacity fibers like Kevlar, and even the concepts behind particle beam weapons for the Strategic Defense Initiative all had their origins in that single file cabinet from Roswell. Corso's claims are, of course, extraordinary. Many historians of technology have disputed his account. But what makes his story so powerful and enduring is his position. He was not a low-level guard or a mechanic. He was a lieutenant colonel who worked on the National Security Council and in the highest levels of Army research and development. Philip Corso's testimony presents a stunning possibility. that the digital revolution that defines our modern world was not born in a garage in Silicon Valley, but in the wreckage of a crashed saucer in the New Mexico desert. While some whistleblowers speak of technology, others speak of life. Sergeant First Class Clifford Stone is one such individual. Stone served for 22 years in the United States Army, and during that time he claims he led a double life. While his official records list him as a clerk typist, he alleges this was a cover for his real assignment, serving as a member of an extremely secret and elite crash retrieval team for the United States Army. According to Stone, his unit was part of a program known as Project Moondust, a real and acknowledged project that was officially tasked with recovering fallen space debris from any nation. However, Stone claims its true classified purpose was the recovery of unidentified flying objects. He says that from 1969 until his retirement, he was dispatched to crash sites both in the United States and abroad, including missions in Vietnam during the war. His specific role on these missions was unique. From a young age, Stone says he had a natural, intuitive ability to interface with non-human life forms. He was, in his own words, the team's designated interfaces, brought in to calm and communicate with any surviving extraterrestrial biological entities, or EBL, found at the crash sites. Over the course of his career, Stone alleges he saw and interacted with multiple types of non-human beings. His most stunning claim, made with great emotion in numerous interviews, is that the United States government is aware of at least 57 different species of extraterrestrial beings who have visited Earth. He says he personally reviewed a 3-inch thick binder that catalogued these different species, detailing their physiology, origins, and capability. Clifford Stone's story is deeply personal and often emotional. He speaks of the beings he encountered not as monsters, but as frightened individuals caught in a disaster, just as a human would be. He has produced his official military service records to verify his service, and investigators have confirmed that Project Moondust was indeed real. While his claims of interacting with aliens are impossible to verify, his sincerity and the consistency of his story over several decades have made him one of the most compelling and human voices in the entire field of ufology. The whistleblowers on our list so far have been from the United States military and intelligence communities, but our next figure held one of the highest political offices in a major world power. Paul Hellyer was Canada's Minister of National Defence in the 1960s, overseeing the unification of the Canadian Armed Forces. Later in his life, he became the highest-ranking government official from any group of 8 nation to state publicly and unequivocally that UFOs are real. Hellyer's journey began in 2005 when he announced that he had seen government documents about UFOs during his time in office, but his claims grew far more specific and extraordinary over the years. He alleged that not only are aliens real, but they have been visiting and interacting with Earth for thousands of years. He stated that there are multiple species, perhaps as many as 80, and that some, like the tall whites, have actively worked with the United States Air Force at bases in Nevada. He spoke of a galactic federation, a loose consortium of different alien civilizations, some of whom are concerned about humanity's warlike nature and our stewardship of nuclear weapons. He claimed that much of our modern technology, including microchips and LED lights, were gifts from these visitors. Paul Hellyer's position made his statements international news. He was not a low-level functionary, he was a former defense minister for a major NATO ally. He had access to intelligence, sat in on high-level briefings, and understood the world of state secrets. His decision to speak out and the incredible, almost fantastical nature of his claims created a paradox. On one hand, his credentials demanded attention. On the other, the sheer scope of what he was alleging, a real-life Star Trek-style federation of planets, was difficult for the mainstream to accept. Regardless, Paul Hellyer remains the most senior political figure to ever break ranks and lend his voice to the disclosure movement. To be an astronaut in the 1960s was to be a hero, a symbol of America's best and brightest. Leroy Gordon Cooper Jr. was one of the original 7 Mercury astronauts, a man who flew in space twice and was a legend in the Air Force, And according to Cooper himself, he knew that UFOs were real long before he ever left the planet. His experiences began in the 1950s. In 1951, while flying an F-86 Sabre jet over West Germany, he and other pilots witnessed formations of what he described as metallic, saucer-shaped objects, flying at altitudes and speeds their jets could not match. But his most significant claimed encounter happened in 1957, when he was a test pilot and project manager at Edwards Air Force Base in California, the very heart of American experimental flight. Cooper says his camera crew was filming the precision landing of an aircraft when a classic flying saucer flew directly overhead and landed on a dry lake bed nearby. The crew under his command approached the craft and filmed it as it sat on the ground, deploying 3 landing legs before taking off silently at high speed. Cooper reported the incident to his superiors at the Pentagon and was ordered to have the film developed immediately and sent to Washington in a locked courier pouch. He was told never to speak of it again. Cooper claimed he never saw the film again and that the event was completely covered up. Late in his life, Gordon Cooper became very outspoken. He wrote a letter to the United Nations in 1985, pleading for an open, scientific investigation into the phenomenon. He stated, "I believe that these extraterrestrial vehicles and their crews are visiting this planet from other planets, which obviously are a little more technically advanced than we are here on Earth. Coming from a man who had seen the Earth from orbit, a pioneer of human spaceflight, his testimony carries the unique weight of someone who has actually been out there and looked back." In December of 1980, the Cold War was at its peak. At the twin Royal Air Force bases of Bentwaters and Woodbridge in the United Kingdom, the United States Air Force housed a critical tactical fighter wing, along with a suspected stockpile of nuclear weapons. The deputy base commander was Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt. Over a series of 3 nights, these bases would become the site of what is often called Britain's Roswell. The incident began when security patrolmen saw strange lights descending into the nearby Rendlesham Forest. Thinking it was a downed aircraft, they went in to investigate. There they encountered a small, triangular, metallic craft hovering just above the ground. It was covered in strange glyph-like symbols and bathed the forest in a brilliant light before shooting off into the sky. 2 nights later, the lights returned. This time, Colonel Holt himself led a patrol into the forest to investigate personally, hoping to debunk what he thought were exaggerated rumors. He carried a micro-cassette recorder with him, and the audio tape he made that night has become one of the most famous pieces of evidence in UFO history. On the tape you can hear Holt and his men reacting in real time as they discover strange indentations on the ground where the craft had been seen. They take radiation readings that show levels significantly higher than normal background radiation in the landing area. Then the object itself appears. Holt describes it on the tape, a bright, pulsating, red-orange light that moves through the trees, dripping what appears to be molten metal. At one point, the object fires a narrow beam of light down at their feet, and then later at the weapons storage area on the base. The tape captures the professional calm of a military commander breaking down into pure astonishment. Charles Holt was a by-the-book Air Force colonel. He filed an official report on the incident, which has since been released. For years he remained quiet, but eventually became convinced that there was a massive cover-up by both the American and British governments. His testimony, backed by his own real-time audio recording and the corroborating accounts of dozens of other airmen, makes the Rendlesham Forest incident one of the best documented and most credible military UFO encounters on record. We conclude our list with the man who was there at the very beginning. In July of 1947, Major Jesse Marcel was the intelligence officer for the 509th Bomb Group at Roswell Army Airfield in New Mexico, the most elite aviation unit in the world, the only one armed with atomic bombs. When a local rancher reported finding a field of strange wreckage, it was Marcel who was sent to investigate. What he found, he would later say, was not of this earth. He described lightweight, E-beam-like structures that could not be bent or broken, and pieces of a foil-like material that, when crumpled, would unfold itself, leaving no creases. Some of these fragments were covered in strange, purplish, hieroglyphic-like symbols. Marcel gathered up some of the debris and brought it back to the base. It took, for he took a deep breath, for 10 minutes. The next day, the base's public information officer issued a press release that shocked the world, announcing that they had recovered a flying disc. The story was front-page news, but within 24 hours, the narrative was shut down. Marcel's superior, General Roger Ramey, called a press conference. He replaced the real debris with fragments from a common weather balloon and had Marcel pose for photographs with it, forcing him to go along with the cover story. For over 30 years, Jesse Marcel remained silent, upholding his orders, but in the late 1970s, he finally broke his silence, telling researchers what he had really seen in that field. He insisted, until his death, that the weather balloon story was a lie, a cover-up that he was forced to be a part of. His son, who was a boy at the time, also testified that his father had brought some of the real, strange debris home for a night, and he remembered handling the bizarre, unearthly materials. Jesse Marcel Sr.'s testimony is the foundational story of the modern UFO era. He was not a civilian. He was the senior intelligence officer of an elite atomic bomber base. His decision to come forward decades later to set the record straight is what transformed Roswell from a forgotten footnote into the most famous UFO case in history, and it created the template for the government cover-ups that so many others on this list would later claim to have experienced themselves. And that is it. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the Purple Files, click the like button, and drop a comment down below. More videos to come, and until then, thanks for watching.